What's going on, fellow A-plussers? It is I, your host, Adam Perez, joined none other than by my co-host, Stewart Branscombe, as today, ladies and gentlemen, we say farewell to one of the greatest shows on streaming services in this current generation, and Stranger Things. That's right, we wind up having ourselves the series finale as of last Wednesday. I wanted to hold off throughout the weekend for everybody to get the opportunity to see the series finale for themselves, and we're going to talk about it today. So this will be a spoiler discussion. So join us, sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Stewart, man, I'm pretty psyched. I'm pretty hyped. I'm pretty excited to talk about Stranger Things with you, man. I know you had the opportunity to check out the entire series yourself. Also, I don't know if you did. You have the opportunity to see it in theaters also, or no? Oh, I think you're muted.
My bad. No, I didn't have the chance to see it, at least not completely in theaters. But because we were playing it at my theater while I
Oh, you
was
did.
working,
Cool.
I did get to see some select moments on the big screen. Something I kind of wish I was there for though was definitely the scene with Steve Harrington when he's like on the edge of the platform, because I have seen some fun reactions with the audience with that one. Like, so it would have been kind of cool to be there with the whole audience, like in that moment of, oh, is he gonna die?
Bro, let me tell you. So I had already watched it at home. First off, shout out to Alamo Drafthouse for actually playing Stranger Things in the theaters. That's pretty cool that you guys got some showings in there. Um, I saw it at home on Netflix, and then the next day on New Year's Day, it was like a 11:45 showing or something like that. I had went to go see it. I guess it was like a brand new theater that they had opened up to show it, because when I got my tickets, there was like hardly anybody in there, but the rest of the showings were like completely packed and full. But by the time I got to my showing, it was like a packed house. Like everybody, it was pretty much packed. Um, the Steve Harrington moment comes on screen, and I had the pleasure of having a group of like two or three girls behind me that were so emotionally hooked into this whole entire thing the entire time. I mean, the moment Steve goes off the edge, I mean, it's sobbing already. Like you would have thought he would have already died before he even fell off the scaffold or whatever, off the radio tower. But the gasps, the oh my god. I mean, the animation that these people had. Actually, I think heightened the experience for me while watching it. Like sometimes it could be a little obnoxious at times, but honestly, when you have people that are as committed and like fully into a show as you are, that can add those levels of emotion, it really made the episode for me even more seeing it in theaters.
Yeah. Because I can't speak for the Stranger Things feeling, but I definitely know what you're talking about, because I know, like, from my experience with Avengers Endgame, what it's like
Yeah,
when you're in
yeah.
like a packed theater filled with fans just like you, and so you get to those moments. It's always great to have like kind of people to share those like kind of emotional impact kind of moments with.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So guys, listen, we are going to be talking about the Stranger Things finale. If you haven't figured it out already, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. We will be talking about it in great detail here today for you guys. Probably some pros, some cons, some favorite moments that we got the opportunity to check out. And then maybe we'll even grade the episode itself towards the end of our review, and then maybe even talk about just the series kind of as a whole, this last season sort of as a whole for you guys. But if you want to join the discussion, if you have any comments that you want to leave, the live chat is certainly open and available for you guys. Certainly go ahead and do so. If you have any questions in regards to us about Stranger Things 5 or the season itself, or topics you personally would like to have discussed, I did go ahead on our YouTube page. I posted a Stranger Things post for you guys, an image where you could submit your stuff over, kind of like how we do live viewer questions, sort of thing. So I thought it'd be fun to go ahead and see if you guys wanted to chime in regards to anything. But Stuart, let's go ahead and get into this, man. I don't know if is there any particular topic that you want to kick us off with? I got a bunch of things. Should we just do like pros and cons first of the episode, and then kind of get into just the moments that we appreciated or big moments of the episode?
Yeah, I'm down to start with like pros and cons.
Okay.
I you want to do it like one of us does the pros, the other, or sorry, one of us does pros, the other one does pros, then the other one does cons, and the other one does cons. So basically,
Yeah,
pros, cons, cons.
yeah, and because I'm not one to I look, I'm not one that likes to harp on the negative too much about things. Because I'm a fan of things, I like to really talk about the things that I appreciate, but I'm not blind to the cons. So, should we get the bad out of the way and then hype up all the good that we had?
You know what? Yeah, I'm cool with doing it that way.
All right.
You want to start?
Because people tune in for the negative, so let's give them the negative first,
That is true.
and then we'll hit them with all the love and appreciation that we had for this episode, or at least that I had. Um, to be honest with you, I actually was such a big fan of this episode. There's very little cons that I do have about this, but if there is anything I would think that stood out to me, I do wish that while the epilogue itself was already pretty long, it wasn't quite like Lord of the Rings 11, 13 endings long or anything like that. But I
Mhm.
probably could have done with a little bit of closure for some other characters. I know that the teacher, their high school teacher, wasn't highly involved in like the finale into the last couple episodes, but because he was included, and he always had like an impact through every episode, every season, I kind of wanted to know the closure, not just for him, but also like I don't think Murray was around to find out. I know you're not really a big fan of Murray, or at least it wasn't in
Oh no, just not in
just
season
season
two.
two.
I
Yeah, just
love
not in
him
season
now.
two. Okay.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to have a closure for Murray, and then especially Erica. I know we see Erica briefly like twice when Lucas and Max are making out, and she's like, gross. And then, you've got her helping Dustin out with the confetti at the graduation and stuff. But I really wouldn't have minded like a little bit more closure for Erica and just maybe the relationship between her and Lucas after everything that those two have kind of been through.
Yeah. I definitely I definitely agree with would have been nice to see more of the two of them. I didn't really mind that they didn't get as much to do, but it would have been nice to see it is all. With
Yeah, I
Lucas
think
though, I think that's where one of my disappointments is, only because like for all actually I would say almost with Mike, almost. I think there was a little bit with him, but I feel like Lucas was kind of the one who didn't really get an arc though. Like I feel like at the very beginning of the season, he was exactly the same from the beginning to the end. I feel like there was nothing that really changed his character. He just kind of went, went along with everything. And I don't mean to say that they, did a bad job, like they ruined his character. They didn't do anything like bad with his character. I just wish they did a little bit more with him as well. So I think that like in terms of like, yeah, characters I wish we got more of, there's that. Other cons that I kind of have with the finale though. So I am kind of with a lot of the other people of kind of wishing like so the explanation that the Duffer brothers have given us for why there's no kind of like demogorgons or anything like that,
Oh, yeah.
surrounding the
Uh-huh.
outside. I
Uh-huh.
do kind of have to agree that would have been cool to see like in this epic final battle, because we've seen them now being
What
able
was
to
their
take on.
excuse?
Their excuse was that Vecna just didn't expect them. He didn't expect an ambush, which I find to be a really weird excuse. So I kind of wish there was just more than just the one kaiju we got. Now the kaiju was cool. Don't get me wrong. It was,
Epic.
yeah, it was
Epic.
very epic, very well animated. It would have just been nice that if they had like more that they had to fight as well, like kind of like not necessarily demogorgons themselves, but maybe demigods, those flying bat things that we got from season
Oh,
4.
yeah.
It just would have been cool. It would have just added a lot more. I just think that like I think my only disappointment with the overall final battle is that I think that compared to what we've gotten in the past, it actually wasn't quite as epic as I feel like they could have gone for, as they've gone for in the past. I just think they could have done, again, not that it was bad. I just think they could have done a little bit more, especially in regards to with Will, because the only thing he really did was he tried to tell Henry it's okay, you can still stop, which of course did absolutely nothing. And it was just weird because they just hyped his involvement up with the season finale. They made it seem like he was going to play like as big of a role in taking Vecna down as 11. But it was just kind of weird that how he kind of gets left behind at the very end, and his only involvement is, Henry, you can change. And then Henry being like, I know I can. I don't want to though. So I wish we got more of him. But I think my biggest complaint, though, and I promise there are pros about this once we get to the pro sections about it. It may sound like I'm really shitting on this finale. I'm not. But my biggest complaint is they kind of pulled a D&D, and I mean, like the two, showrunners of Game of Thrones. And that was like, I can kind of accept Vecna not expecting an ambush because they do kind of show how overly confident he is, just like the Emperor. That's kind of his big, weakness. That's like what gets him, defeated in the end, is that he's overly confident. But I find it so weird that our characters did not remember that the military was outside the portal waiting for them, as they were leaving the Upside Down at the end. It kind of reminded me, the reason I brought up D&D from Game of Thrones is because it reminded me of that interview of Emilia Clarke. She sort of just forgot about the Iron Fleet, when she ended up losing one of her dragons, and that was like the excuse in the interview. And it was just kind of like, did our main characters forget that the military was like literally right outside waiting for them? So I thought that was pretty dumb. And this, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay.
But I don't quite understand if we're going with the Mike's theory at the very end of what actually happened with Elle. I still don't kind of get why she left all of them out of the loop. Like, unless, I guess you could say that she just knew that Mike would follow her and she didn't want Mike to kind of give up his life, for her, so it could be something along those lines. But I do find it kind of weird that Elle had that plan at the end that she didn't inform anyone else about. I just didn't really understand why she didn't do that. But I guess that's kind of what the what are they called? The Roofer brother? No.
Duffer?
Duffer Brothers. Yeah, sorry. I don't know why. I think I was getting Russo mixed up with Duffer, and that's where I was getting confused.
There's a lot of brothers in entertainment right now.
There are, yeah. But I think the Duffer Brothers wanted that to be left up to interpretation, so I won't hold that too much against the ending. I just was like, I wonder why she left him out of that. But yeah, those are kind of my biggest cons of the episode.
I would say the Demogorgons, I definitely was surprised. I watching it, I didn't necessarily think oh man, where are the Demogorgons or anything like that. But looking back on it now, that definitely is a big question that I had. I guess my idea of it when I think of it is because we don't see any Demogorgons or any bats or anything like that in this abyss, correct? Once we get up there, there's nothing. I'm kind of under the impression that the gates have opened and they've all flooded the Upside Down. Maybe they were in that particular world before, but once the cracks start seeping into the abyss that is the Upside Down, I feel like they all just fall down and plummet and just get down to the ground, and they can't come back up to the abyss. They're whatever was in the abyss was big enough to escape and go to the Upside Down, which is why maybe the Mind Flayer or the big kaiju at the end is the only thing left up there, because his big ass can't get down to the Upside Down, perhaps. That would be my I think that's probably the first thing that came to mind for me, why there weren't any Demogorgons, but I don't know. That's just my own speculation. I will say though, you do bring up a really good point in regards to them leaving and then having no wherewithal of the fact that there's an army outside. That is, to me, that is the biggest wait a minute, guys, how do you forget that? Because even me, as I'm watching it, I'm just thinking to myself, like, I know something's gonna happen. Like, I know something's about to happen. Like, it was just way too much happiness. But I do think they did a good job, at least, of like, I think maybe from an audience standpoint, um, having this kind of forget about the military, because they they really don't highlight the military too much in the season finale, with the exception of the small group that does go inside the upside down. So it's like, mentally, I think, like, once you see the military people get off in this episode, and then we're just really with the gang the rest of the time, the idea of the military is way in the back of your head. And so when they go out, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, they all are still effing there. But you're right, you would think that somebody in the group would have come up with the plan of, okay, we can get inside, but if we got to leave, like, what's the what's the plan for that, guys, right? Like,
Yeah.
that is the next part of the plan. So then I think you make a good point. As for 11 goes, I think it's just a case of like, um, I think it's just I think it's always that selfless act of a hero, in regards to when you sacrifice yourself, of, you just don't want other people's lives to continue to be a problem. And I think you don't tell other people, because of the fear of, if it ever were to get out that you knew about it, the military would be on your ass,
Mhm.
um, torture you to get the information out of you, or whatever the case may be. So I think the idea that she doesn't tell anybody her plans is probably, I would think that's probably what the motive is in regards to that.
Yeah, to
But
prevent them from being like, yeah, basically interrogated by the military.
yeah, it feels like a very selfless act, kind of on
Mhm.
her part. So, but no, you bring up some good things though that I didn't really even consider, when watching the episode itself. But were those all the cons that you had so for the majority of the episode?
Those were the ones that I could think of
That
off
really?
the top of my head. But as we continue talking about the episode, there might be some more that come up, not just from the episode, but the season itself. I think as a whole with the season, I think my biggest kind of con about the season as a whole was really just how the plot points kind of moved forward. I feel like there was a little bit too much of an over reliance on like plot conveniences, and I really wish I wrote down some examples. Unfortunately, I completely forgot to do so. But I feel like there were a few too many convenient and plot contrivances that happened throughout the season. I wouldn't like call them plot holes. I would just say, oh, that's kind of convenient that that's how, it kind of all lined up. But, again, I guess that's more of a nitpick than anything else. I guess if I hated it so much, I would have actually written it down so I could say the specific ones that I'm talking about. But yeah, so I guess that's more of a nitpick.
Yeah, real quick, I want to give some shots to some people in the live chat. We have Marcelino here with us today. I'm seeing Kiki and Luca here. Also, Varshith. What's a Varshith gaming show coming through over on YouTube? Also, I appreciate it. I would pull up some of the comments here, but my studio's being a little bit slow on my side. Maybe you can. Kiki and Luca says there's lots of plot holes, but it's fine. I am kind of curious as to what plot holes um, um, that you might have had with it. Kiki and Luke also say, I didn't like that the big bad was a kaiju, kind of lazy in my pit. Oh my god, I loved it though. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, when I wrote down like pros and cons, I didn't really have too many cons with it, with the episode itself. But in my pros, I wrote down everything else. Everything else really worked for me. A couple things. Um, One of the things that I really appreciated about the episode was, I first off, I thought that they stuck the landing in here in regards to the closure for the
Mhm.
show itself. Um, I thought it was just a really great closure, especially for like a coming of age story, and not specifically just for the D&D kids, but also for the well, I guess technically they're adults, and the adults in the room, like Steve and Nancy and Jonathan and Robin and whatnot. I really liked it because one of the things I loved about this show is that we really have grown up with both sets of them, right? Like them at the tail end of high school, going into college, going into the real world, whereas we've had the other kids who were in like middle school, going through high school and stuff. Like it's really cool to kind of see how much they've changed over time. And I think me especially, um I think we can all really relate with like each set of kids in regards to where you like that next step or next journey in your life, you know? I think we can all remember what it was like, going to high school or, graduating high school and then realizing like it's time to, move away or go someplace else. And maybe like lose in touch with your friends or the idea that, you're never really going to be kids again. So it's an aspect of your life that you kind of put to the side a little bit. But in regards to like the adults, like I, I really felt their ending, especially like the idea of for me, like when I got done with high school, I wind up moving to Texas. I moved out of Jersey to like halfway around the country. Um, and you realize that you're not going to get those moments anymore. And even as an adult, as you go through different jobs, as your life changes, whether that be marriage or you have kids or whatever the case may be, like I think there's a reason why for some adults, like their friend circle gets smaller and smaller and
Mhm.
smaller. Not just because we're getting old and we're getting crotchety and we don't like people anymore, but it's just life truly just kind of like gets in the way of things. And so like when they make that resolution of like, hey, we're gonna meet each other like every month after this and try and keep this bond going. I have no doubt that they certainly continue to do so. But there is like that eerie feeling in the back of my head of understanding as an adult that while you have those wishes, that as you get older and your life changes, you know, they may not be meeting up every month after
Mhm.
that. It may be getting more spread out or maybe years on end before you kind of see each other again. And the realization I think they knew that also. I mean, just the emotions that they were expressing, I think they knew that also, but they were doing everything they could to hold on to as little bit of what they had before. And I think for me as an adult, especially now that I'm a father myself and just how crazy life has become, not being able to see my friends as often as I certainly would like to, that just absolutely hit me. But I think also just the closure of for the kids in regards to where we started the show to how we ended the show in regards to it being a D&D campaign, I just thought was absolutely marvelous. And it really hit home for me in regards to like, this is why I love this show in the first place. And I thought Mike's storytelling was absolutely brilliant. So I just thought the closure for all the characters, the main characters at least, was just top notch personally.
Absolutely. That's probably one of the best highlights about it is I think like the overall ending that we got did a great job on giving us the closure that I think the show needed for all of its characters. And yeah, like you said earlier, it's not like quite the Lord of the Rings like epilogue that
No,
I
no.
honestly almost thought that that's what we were going to get, but it was still pretty good. I absolutely love the graduation scene and the speech that Dustin gets.
Yeah.
I think in terms of character arcs, Dustin's was definitely my favorite this season. I like how kind of in the beginning he was so frustrating every time he was on camera, and I was just like, I told myself, if they wait until the very last minute for him to make his turnaround, I'm gonna hate this, what they did to him. But I think the timing of how he kind of had that turnaround, by the end of the penultimate episode, it took him and like Steve opening up to each other for them to like finally like reconcile. And that was when I
Yeah.
think that his character arc was just absolutely perfect. I especially love during his graduation speech. I wish I had noticed this on my own. I didn't. Someone on TikTok had to point this out to me. But the graduation, what he does after the speech, he does literally exactly what Eddie said he was going
Yeah,
to do. He takes
yeah.
the the high school diploma and gives the bird to the
'Cause
principal, and then walks off. And that was so cool, bringing that whole thing full circle. And also what he said too, because it is true. That is like a thing with high schools, is that it feels like you have kind of just this system that's just been there for so long, where it's like people are just naturally going to be divided in high school, whether it be through like different groups or different interests or anything. And that, yeah, it's like there's not really much that the higher authorities do to like change that, like the
yeah,
principal. So I think that it's cool, because we don't know much about the principal, because we haven't seen much of him on screen, but it is kind of cool whenever a kid challenges like a teacher like that, basically says, hey, do your job better. I love that. I thought that was pretty awesome at the very end.
yeah.
um
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
I was just gonna piggyback off of the Dustin thing. I heard him. I heard him give an interview because people were asking like, what happened to Susie? We didn't see Susie at all in this season, and one of the things that he said in an interview was that he personally believes that him and Susie wind up breaking up, which is why you don't see her in here. And he pretty much gives the reasons as to like why he thinks that. And it's just like because of the grief that he was dealing with and the loss
Yeah.
of Eddie and whatnot. Like if he's capable of pushing his friends away and not being there mentally, like you can imagine the idea of him having pushed Susie away or something like that. But I will say I do love the fact that the girl comes up to him because it towards the end. But I think what makes it even better for me is that despite like having achieved the idea of like now the girl notices you, they still decide to go to their D&D game. Like the fucking
Yeah.
it's so perfect for them. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious, but also, yeah, it definitely, yeah, made sense for their character. I loved it. Yeah, it also kind of reminded me of like, the ending of season 2, where it was like he tried to ask a girl to dance. Of course, they just,
Yes.
totally rejected him. So now it's like kind of
Comes
cool.
full
Girls
circle
are
now.
coming to him and he's rejecting them. Like, that's pretty cool. And yeah, I totally think that, because with just like how hard it was for him to grieve, like, and I can only imagine like how like mentally like draining that would be for you, if really you knew someone for who they really were, you knew like what they did, how they sacrificed themselves for like everyone, and yet everyone still saw that person as the monster. I can only imagine how like mentally draining that would be for like anyone. So it makes sense. That's why I think that what they did with Dustin made a lot of sense of why he would kind of become the bad boy in the beginning of the
Yeah.
season. Definitely not where you would expect his character to be,
No.
from the first season.
Yeah, I think he had at least like going into this season. I think I was most surprised about his character shift for sure compared to like everybody else's. It was kind of cool to see like Hopper and Elle and them like mentally taking that next step forward of like, we're really gonna take like your training really seriously, sort of thing. But I think for me, Dustin's was definitely the most the biggest change that I think really threw me for a loop to begin the season off.
Yeah. And I think so I think his was my favorite. I thought that specifically like Joyce and Mike together, their characters and how they grew together was great. Like Joyce happened to like, basically let go, trust that, Mike
Oh,
can like
Will,
do this. Or I said
Will,
Mike, my bad. I meant to say Will. I'm so
Will.
sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Joyce and Will. And so basically happened to trust Will to be able to like, basically that she doesn't have to like kind of hold him back, basically the same way that Hopper was kind of doing to Elle. And I think that's one thing that also kind of helped, was having Hopper and Joyce having that very similar arc, but for very different reason. Hopper having it
Mm.
because he knows that while he knows that Elle is capable, he also knows that she's overconfident, and with how many people are after her, he knows that there's a good chance he could leave her. But to an extent, he still has to learn to trust her more. Excuse me. And then with Joyce, with Will, of course, it's just because she still sees him as the fragile boy that he was in the first season. Whereas, like, I think by the end, she finally like trusts that he's no longer that scared kid that needs protecting, but he's the one that can actually help protect, the town from Vecna. I thought those were some arcs that were really good. I love a lot throughout the season. They had some really great character dialogue moments between each other. It's funny because I get that a lot of people didn't like the dialogue this season. Like when I look
Yeah,
at a majority of the complaints,
yeah,
that seems to be what comes up.
yeah.
And I get in some areas where it kind of feels, I do think that when it comes to characters that I don't really care about when they have their on-screen moments together, or characters that I just don't feel like had as much chemistry, that's where I don't like the dialogue very much. And I think one example would be Jonathan and Steve, their moment where they act like they had this rivalry the entire show, when it's like the only time they really like disliked each other was season 1, and even then that was kind of for a justifiable reason on Steve's part. So it was just weird because I've never seen them interact with each other, and then suddenly they act like they've always had this weird rivalry. So I didn't love that like part of it. But when you have characters having a dialogue with each other that are characters that you've seen before and that you want to see like kind of continue to grow, I think that's when it's at its best. Like, and the examples that I gave, such as Joyce and Will, and of course Hopper and Elle. I also think that like Mike, anytime he's given kind of a speech, to like any of his friends, he does a really good job. But does. it's when they mix characters that I just don't think work as well as when the dialogue feels clunky. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if I had any complaints, I think that the dialogue for me could be a little bit cheesy at times, or just didn't hit for me. But I think it's also, and I might get some flack for this. So I don't want to. There are just some performances in here that I just didn't care for. And I think the performances along with the dialogue didn't work for me. Sometimes it felt a little bit too on the nose, a little bit too cheesy. The performance just didn't work for me. And specifically, and people probably get mad at me for saying this, and I'm not saying he was like this all season long. I'm not saying that, but there are just some moments in regards to Noah Shep's performances. I just did not care for it. His interactions though with Robin, I thought were really golden. I loved their chemistry together this season. His monologue when he comes out, I thought was brilliant too. I was a really big fan of that. And then any moment he gets to be a superhero and a badass, like I'm like when his performances do not lack when he's like using his powers and his eyes turn white and he's bleeding from his nose. Like anytime Noah Shep is in those positions, I'm a big fan of. But there are just other scenes, whether that be, I don't know, them in the barn. I know you were a fan of like him and Joyce. Sometimes I just didn't really care for it because I say that because like, while they are getting to that point of a mother trying to accept the fact that her son is grown up and stuff. I guess there is like just the way he performs it still feels like he's a little bit of a mama's boy. And I don't mean that it's kind of disrespectful, but I know, but there's just ways that he performs it that I'm just like, I still feel like your mom's boy at times, even though you're like, I'm a man now, mom. Sometimes it still feels that way to me. So that's really, I think, maybe where some of the performances come from. But outside of that, I really like some of the chemistry in here really worked again. Will and Robin I was a really big fan of the Steve and Dustin stuff. Anytime that you had Max involved with anybody, whether that be Holly or Lucas, I was a big fan of also. I will say one of the pros, not just for the season finale, but just in general for this series, I love the addition of Holly in here.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, I think this show does a really good job of timing when it is to have supporting characters highly involved in things, whether that be Robin or Erica. The idea that this year was going to be a Holly season, or even hell, even dipshit Derek, I thought was a great addition to this. but I really loved her involvement and the idea of her bond that she grew with Max in here, and it's just like the Wheeler family in general. It's just a bunch of badasses. Like
Oh yeah,
I'm really impressed to see how the Wheelers came together. Kiki and Luca in the chat say Vecna actor was magnificent. Oh, absolutely, dude,
definitely.
absolutely. I mean, anytime that my man was angry and he had this look on his face and his eyes were like red and he was pissed and angry, bro. I was convinced. You had me convinced the whole time. I really hope we see him in more things. Um but yeah, I mean those were some of the great pairings. But if I did have a complaint, it would be some of the dialogue and some of the performances I thought was kind of cheesy, mostly coming from Noah Schnapp's part. But
Yeah.
kudos to him. I hope it is. I think it's also interesting, though, right? Like, and maybe he'll go on to do other things in his career. I'm not quite sure, but it is interesting that it's like you cast these kids as young actors, and I think you also take the risk of like as they get older, will they get better? You know? And I feel like I feel like for the majority of the cast, they certainly have. I am kind of curious if Noah had more opportunities in some of the other past seasons, if his some of his performances would have been better. But I guess it maybe in part fits with who Will has always kind of been, because he's always felt like the left out kid, or like, the things shit has happened to him, but he's always been the shy, in the back sort of kid for the most part. But yeah, that's my one complaint, really.
Yeah. But you mentioned Holly, and I gotta just talk a little bit more about that, because I think that what it not only introducing her, but what they did with her character was really cool. And something I
Really cool.
absolutely love about the way it all kind of ended is that we now have the kids. Well, they're actually like past where the older kids were, in season one. But it is kind of cool because at the beginning of the season, I feel like they were kind of at where in their lives, that is, where Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve were in the very
Right.
beginning of the show. And then of
Right.
course we end it to with all of them graduating. But as they graduate, we now see Holly, dipshit Derek, and then the other two. No, there were three of them. There was like a group of five, all of them about to play D&D, and you kind of see like, they're about to be exactly where our main characters were at the very beginning of the season. So
Yeah.
I absolutely love how it kind of like cycles through all different walks of life, like and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very much a
So
full circle
yeah,
moment. Like I really love seeing that moment of Mike just kind of like knowing that his story is over, but then like getting a friendly reminder that it's like, the story is always there. And it does lead me to one of my other pros of the show is that the series, I think, for the most part, especially in the finale, really stays true to itself.
yeah,
It's really always been a D&D game at heart, and just sort of brought to life. And the idea that like each season you really get the players solidified in regards to like who they are and the pieces of the board, of the roles that they kind of play. And so to be able to see, especially like Mike as the storyteller at the end, referring to everybody as their occupation or whether it be a knight or a zoomer or a bard, like it just really came together for me, especially like the mid credits of it, as it wraps up and it pulls out and it says Stranger Things role playing strategy guide or something like that. Like it just really solidifies for me, like, yeah, this whole entire series has been one giant D&D game set in the real world. I mean, we always get those references, especially when it comes to the villains and stuff, but to kind of see the Duffer Brothers like making a statement in a sense of like, this is like our show literally is just D&D, guys, and to make it as much of a hit as it has been, I think is a testament not only to the game but their level of storytelling. But yeah, I was a big fan of them staying true to themselves.
mhm, definitely agree.
Shout out to B Harat also for certainly coming through today. Thank you so much. Um, Kiki and Lucas says there are so many characters. I felt everyone didn't get enough screen time, including Joyce and Mike. Holly got a lot of on-screen time. Yeah, she was
Yeah.
definitely she was definitely the focus. of this season. Like one of the like what I will say series wise, if there is any sort of con that I had about the entire series, sometimes maybe a little bit slow in kind of its build up. But the moments I think still really hit for me, like especially the tail end of each volume. Um, when Will reveals he's got powers at the end, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. The idea of Max finally being able to kind of escape Vecna's mind, I thought was absolutely brilliant. But going back to Max and Holly and leaving Vecna's mind, like that whole scene took way too long. Like the speech that she gives Holly, way too long. Like you've
Mhm.
spent your whole entire time trying to get out of this man's mind, and now you have the chance. This is the time you take to give a speech. Like, girl, like how many times have you been in this exact spot and it's been taken from you twice, and this is the moment that you try and give a long ass speech? No, you wait for that. You take that speech any other time, but not right now. Like that was just so frustrating. But what I did love about this series, unlike some of the other series, though, I do love that we really jump into what the team is already doing. Like the fact that they have already built up sort of like this system of going in and the crawl and the training and the radio station and having a secret hideout and lair sort of thing. Like I like seeing that stuff has happened since the last time that we met, and like these kids are like really serious. So it didn't feel like, hey, we've got to build up to this moment of them getting their shit together. It's like they already got their shit together. Now here comes the problem, but it even still took him a little bit to actually get to the first like big climax, I thought, of volume one. But overall, I still really enjoyed this series.
Yeah, I did too. But yeah, I think like because we ranked the seasons during our podcast, and I think that I ranked this one as my number 4 out of the 5 seasons.
We'll
I
get to the ranking
definitely.
here in a second. We'll get into the ranking in
Oh,
a
we're
second.
gonna
Yeah,
do that
we'll,
again.
we'll do
Oh,
it
okay.
again. Yeah, just for people that
Cool.
missed
In
it.
that case, I'll wait to get my final thoughts in terms of that. But yeah, I'll say that yeah, I think that overall though, I did enjoy the season, and I think that what's funny is a lot of people are disappointed by this season. I think it's just because it didn't live up to the hype that we had from the last couple seasons, which I get to an extent. But the big thing I can say about this is, unlike other shows that have had like not the best finales, at least for this one, this final season didn't really do anything that, to my opinion, broke the show. That kind of like went against anything that had already been like established. It didn't. The writing wasn't so bad that it kind of ruined other seasons. Is what I'm kind of getting at. So I think that like because it ended and it was a proper ending, it didn't like try to pull some BS where you have one character that ruins it for everyone because suddenly the writers decide to make them only just now act out a character. Cough cough, Game of Thrones. You didn't have that, so that was what kind of made me appreciate it. Is that like it may not have been like the most epic finish that I wanted to see, but it was still a finish, and it was still they finished without like really dragging the show down. They didn't finish strong, but they didn't finish like, weak or anything like that, to my opinion.
Man, I thought this was as epic as it gets, Stewart. When it comes to wrapping up, I mean, I really don't know what else I could have personally have asked from them, honestly. I'll go back into that, but I thought it was epic because I do want to talk about some oh my god moments out of this
Ooh,
episode, and
yeah,
we'll talk about it.
definitely.
But real quick, going back to the pro for the series finale, I personally love Eleven's ending. I was a fan of the open endedness. And I don't know if it's because I'm a sucker of like a choose your own adventure type stories or whatever the case may be. I don't know if this type of stuff, because I've never played D&D, I'm sorry. If that kind of plays into a part of D&D campaigns or whatnot, but I was a really big fan of Eleven's ending and leaving it open to those, whether or not she died or she was alive. The Duffers said that they know the definite answer. They've told Millie, but Millie's the only other person that knows about Eleven's true ending. But like the group, Stewart, I believe. I
Yeah.
choose to believe that she's alive, and I think not just because I want a feel good moment, but I do think that there are instances in the show that make sense to me that would explain how she could be alive. And I think the fact that they show visually, like while it could be like a theoretical vision, I think the fact that they actually show 11 in that particular moment, I think hints at that. Yeah, I think she's alive personally.
Here's why I think it's official, like to my opinion, because whenever Mike describes where he and Eleven would run off to, he says a place with three
Three
waterfalls
waterfalls.
every time. But when we see the place, and if this is supposed to be Mike's imagination and not the actual place, theoretically it should have had three waterfalls, but it doesn't. It has two waterfalls because this is a real place that actually exists on Earth. So to me, I feel like that's kind of just, again, I didn't come up with that. That was someone I heard on TikTok, and I'm stealing it from them, and I wish I could credit them, but I can't remember the account name, so I apologize. But yes, I do think that is the Duffer Brothers confirming that she's alive, and that is just where she ended up. Especially because we know that she's like in fit shape. So if she had to like hike somewhere like in the middle of nowhere to reach her destination, she could definitely pull that off.
I will say, I give it 10 years, Stuart. Give it 10 years, we will have a Stranger Things special event where something happens and Mike and 11 will eventually be reunited. I think give them 10 more years and
Now,
they
is
may
this going to
maybe
be
revisit it.
is this going to be a really happy reunion, like both of them have gone nowhere with their lives, so now they can continue their lives together? Or will it be one or both of them have moved on and then they get reunited and now they don't know what they want?
No, I think by the time we join them again, I would not be surprised if Mike and Will, I mean, if Will, I mean, if Mike and 11 are actually together.
Oh,
Like I,
okay.
like I think she probably will have reached out to him or found him or whatever the case may be. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. There is a rumor. I give them 10
This
years.
is
All it gives
funny.
any more money. I don't know. Millie probably don't need no more money.
Oh, I
Noah
don't think.
Noah Shep, I think, said he's set for the rest of his life if he don't get anything else after this, which I believe. I'm sure all these kids are pretty well off, but I think some of them are going to have some pretty good careers, honestly, after this.
Watch
Some of them,
10,
maybe not all of them. But.
10, 15 years from now, they become like the Ned's Declassified kids, where they just like start a whole podcast where every episode is them being like, so we really want to reboot our show. So guys, we really want to reboot our show.
Let's see here. Liam Page says, do you think the 9th episode will happen? I don't know if you've heard this, but there's like a theory going around that there's one more episode that's gonna drop like on the 7th or something like that. I will say I was highly disappointed that this season was only 8 episodes instead of 9. I was fully expecting 9. I personally don't think a 9th episode will happen, but if you don't know, they are doing a behind the scenes special for Stranger Things season 5. They just released a trailer for it. It's called One Last Adventure, where they're gonna show you the behind the scenes of putting Stranger Things season 5 together. I think it's like January 12th or something like that. So you can look forward to that. I don't think there's a 9th episode, but I think if they're going to announce a 9th episode, maybe it's after that. But I have no idea.
I think they would have announced it personally, like right after the finale. I don't think they would have, especially if it was in theaters and you had that big audience. You would have been like, the cast will return on this date. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think, yeah, we're going to get the behind the scenes, and that's going to be really cool. But yeah, hang on. I do want to. There was a joke that I had in my head about this specifically. So a lot of people are shipping Mike and Will, which I never got, because to me, I feel like it was very much
Very
confirmed
clear.
that
Yeah.
Mike likes girls.
Yeah.
Not Will. Will, I feel like that's actually, this is something like him coming out. I felt like that was hinted at since season one. I mean, like, you know, they use the F, like basically the bullies, like the F word is the first one that they went to when it came to Will.
Did
And
they? I didn't
yeah.
realize that. I
And
didn't.
then
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and then keep in mind with Lucas, I don't remember what I think for Dustin, of course, they make fun of him not having his front teeth, and then for Lucas, they go for I can't remember what they said. I think it was a racial
It
slur of
was a
some
racial
sort.
slur. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
racial some type. Yeah.
yeah. So they go for what they actually think like the kids are. So yeah, it makes sense that they just thought that, you know, so they were probably thinking it like back then. So to me, I feel like it had been hinted at. And then they even have like that whole thing where Joyce is with Hopper and she's like, you know, the other kids called him, you know, she says the F word and he's like, well, is he, you know? So I feel like, and then, you know,
It's kind of
as the
been
show kept,
teased. Yeah.
yeah, so and then as it went on, especially with season 4, I think that was where I feel like Will wanted to tell Mike and everything, but you know, just never had the courage to do so. But yeah, to me, this was not something that came out of nowhere like a lot of other people are saying. But at the same time, I do not think that Mike ever felt the same way, and I don't think Will ever expected Mike to feel the same way. So I think that,
Yeah, I
like,
don't
you
think
know,
so
they made
either.
it. Yeah, but that being said, so the joke that I had in my head when I watched the scene, because first of all, I do want to say it, you know, we mentioned that, or you mentioned that Noah wasn't your favorite actor on the show, which I totally get. He wasn't mine either. In fact, I think that out of all the kids, his acting skill, honestly, was probably the one that didn't get better over time. His was just kind of more or less the same, just now with a deeper voice. But I will give him credit for that scene. I think that when he
Yeah.
did his
Yeah.
monologue, that was great. But
Yeah.
in my
Really.
head,
Yeah.
I just kept wondering, oh man, I thought at least one person would have been like, Mike, I think I speak for all, or sorry, Will, I think I speak for all of us when I say, duh.
I wouldn't. I honestly would not have minded if it was like somebody in a group like what we didn't know, guys. Like we didn't really already know. Like,
Like,
I
are we
mean,
really gonna pretend?
yeah. Like, I mean, I think just from reality. Like, I watched the. God, this is so bad. I was watching TikTok and somebody put together a clip of like if Will came out to a black family, and if his family was black or something like that, and it's like it's Will like crying and stuff, but it's like Medea. Talking about like we already knew this, like we already knew this was happening, and everybody's as Will's trying to like get this off his chest, the family's just looking at him
We
like
know.
we know this, like we like what you talking, we know this already. But yeah, Medea was like, you don't got to worry about that. Like, we love you still. We already knew this. But it was just funny. Like, you should have had at least like I appreciate everybody giving him hugs, accepting him and stuff. But some reality would have been nice in the sense of like, there's like one or two person like I knew already. Like
Yeah.
just something. But yeah, no. Overall, I was a fan of that scene, and yeah, I've never been under the impression that Mike and Will were ever going to be together. I mean, I, Mike has definitely made it apparent that he loves Elle. Will really understands that, and he even understood that in season 4. I mean, the idea that he turns his head while he's in the van and he's crying, and I think there's a level of acceptance in the sense of like he's not mine. He loves somebody else sort of mentality. But I do love, and that's one of the reasons why I love the relationship between him and Robin.
Yes.
Having like that friend that gets you, that understands you, that had to deal with the same things that you had to deal with. I saw some, I will say, I heard people saying like the show wasn't queer enough or it's too gay sometimes. Like it's just both polar opposites of the lens. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, did you grow up in the 80s? Like, do you know how hard it was for gay people in the 80s? Like just to like feel like they can coexist with other people or feel like they could be, normal or accepted or anything like that. Like this just feels, I think what they did with Will and especially with Robin just feels so natural for the times and so natural for their character. But the fact that Will was able to find not really able to find his true power until he was able to accept himself. And the moment that he was able to do that, everything else clicked for this man the rest of the season. And I think that just spoke volumes in regards to his character arc in here. So I really love the growth for Will in here, despite how I felt about maybe some of the performances. I thought Will had a great arc this season for sure.
I'm really glad you brought that up because that was another complaint that I heard other people saying was they didn't understand what the purpose was of putting the scene there when they did. But I totally get it. It's because that, yeah, if your powers are mental, if it's a whole thing about you having a mental battle with someone else, you have to be able to clear your mind to the best of your abilities. You have to be able to get all the baggage, all the internal like struggles that you're getting. You got to get that off your chest if you're going to be clear headed enough to, engage in a psychic battle, basically. So to me, it made total sense why they put that scene in there when they did. And I thought, yeah, with all that, despite my joke earlier, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty brilliant too. Shout out to Mr. Zyarts for certainly coming through today. We also shout out to Mr. Sure Thing Buddy. Appreciate you. No, I'm not gonna. He had a joke. He said it took Will longer to come out on the show than it took Delta to kidnap Maduro. That's fucked up. That's so messed up. But I do want to talk about some oh shit moments because there were plenty of oh shit moments in this episode that I think deserve to be talked about, especially if you had the opportunity to see on the big screen. It was unlike anything I've ever seen. I'll name off one, and if you have one that comes to your head that was like an OMG moment for you, Stewart, please let me know. But the first one I think was Steve almost dying. It came kind of early in the episode, but I literally gasped, and so did everybody else in the movie theater when it happened. I thought he was for sure gone, especially the slow motion fall sort of thing. But I love the moment just because I kept thinking to myself going into this episode, if Steve dies, we're rioting. And it didn't happen. You talked about that you think that Dustin had one of the best arcs for the series. I think Steve is up there for me too as one of my he definitely has grown on me. But yeah, that was definitely an oh my god sort of moment thinking Steve was gonna die. Um did you have one that came to your mind?
Um, hmm.
Because I got a list I can go down.
I think the other one that kind of like had me on the edge of my seat was definitely when the military infiltrated the radio tower, just because of like with Max is like she can't move her legs, she can't really do much, so it's all up to I totally forgot her name, but the
Robin's girlfriend.
Yeah, it's all up to her to basically like keep her safe, so she can help Elle like mentally, but also keep them both hidden from the military. I thought like the way that the scene was kind of built up there, I thought that was really good.
A couple things involving 11. The first one, Hopper killing 11. I got to tell you, I knew that what's his face Vecna had gotten into his mind, but at that particular point I thought he was already gone. And so when he starts firing, like I thought he literally fired and it was like we're back to reality. And I just remember the girls behind me going, oh my god, and then they reveal it and people are just like lost their shit, and she was like, it's not real, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's not, but that was like my second viewing. But still, again, the idea that people really fell for it, I thought was a really great sort of jaw-dropping moment.
I'm glad you brought that up because I had actually completely forgotten about that moment. But yeah, no, I was definitely right there with everyone else. Like I actually thought that, oh crap, how she's I actually thought she had bullets in her, and when we went back into her mind and we heard the knocking, but we saw that she didn't seem like injured in her own mind.
Right,
I was just kind of like thinking, does it not like affect her mentally, even though she's physically in pain? And I should have pieced it together there, but I didn't. It wasn't until the moment she woke up and we saw there were no bullet holes that made me go, oh no, that was all fake. Oh man, it was one of those moments where like the moment the reveal came, I'm like, how did I not see that coming?
Yeah, absolutely. What other moments do we have? 11 offing the soldiers in the building. I thought that was pretty awesome to kind of see. It's one of those things where it's just like, I've seen her snap necks before and stuff, but there's just something brutal about the idea of her like making my man shoot himself in the head that I was not expecting. The crowd gave a round of applause for that one for sure. Let me see. We also got Dustin in the house. Appreciate you coming through, Dustin. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else that has some questions. There are David. What's up, David? Appreciate you coming through. He says I stopped watching after season 3. Man, season 3 was like my favorite season, bro. My favorite season.
I feel like it's always either season 3 or season 1.
Yeah, right. yeah, absolutely. I also had going back to Kiki and Lucas thing about the kaiju. I lost my shit during that. First off, the reveal of the kaiju alone. I'm looking at this big ass thing, and then I'm looking at our squad, and I'm like, somebody's dying. Like, there's just no way. Like, somebody is absolutely dying in this moment. And to see 11 show up on the scene the way that she did, throwing chucking the big ass boulder, and then you get to see the size discrepancy before them. To me, this scene, Stewart, is Avengers Endgame level of Captain America facing off against the army of Thanos, like the impossible odds that you see. Like, visually, that's the first thing that kind of came to my mind. And then to see her like run this thing down with like no fear, rip it open, fucking fly through it like a superhero, and then the superhero landing. I mean, I went crazy. The crowd went crazy in the theater. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen on this effing show before, Stewart.
I loved that moment. I think that I wouldn't have minded the kaiju as much. I mean, not that I minded it at all. Actually, let me rephrase that. I just don't think the kaiju on its own was cool enough to make the finale as epic as it could have been. I think we saw like a comment earlier that said like apparently the reason there weren't more like demodogs or demogorgons or flying bats or anything like that was because of budget reasons, which that's totally fair if that was the reason. But I just I think my biggest problem with the kaiju is that it's something that where it's like I know someone like Elle who at this point is basically a Jedi. It's something where it's like I know that she can actually go and face this thing. I know that Nancy with her weapons and her, having really good, being really good with a gun can distract it very good. But I think like the entire time I'm watching all of the other kids trying to be helpful while attacking the kaiju and just like not really doing anything. It's just, I think moments like that just make it so it's like because they're not doing as much to really help, they're just kind of there because, they all need to participate in the final fight. It just made it not quite as interesting as I think it could have been had we had a little bit more. Yeah. Man, and again, I thought the kaiju was cool. I just think I just would have liked a little bit more than just the kaiju. But yeah, I mean, agree with you. That moment with her jumping inside of it, epic.
I mean, I do get the idea of wanting more than just the kaiju. I guess from my perspective, when I look at that scene, this is like a culmination of years of this team having worked so long together that they finally have it. Like they finally have it all together. Like this is, it's like being able to see Will helping out and 11 helping out and then the kids helping. It's like a three-way attack in order to not only take out Vecna, but also weaken this mind flayer kaiju kind of creature that they have. So like for me, it was really believable. And it was only believable because of the fact that we already know how like, especially when it comes to fire being like its biggest weapon and its biggest enemy, to see everybody dishing out some sort of level of flame, I thought was absolutely incredible. But I think for me, it was just a combination of like, it wasn't like just the kids taking it down by themselves. That would be crazy. But it's the fact that we also had Elle who was fighting it from the inside, and then also Will at the same time, kind of helping out too. So I don't know. To me, it was just, it made them feel like it just made them feel like superheroes to me at the end. Like when the kaiju crashes and then they show like everybody shots of themselves, like those legit could be superhero like posters that you put on your wall.
Mhm.
Like everybody looks so badass. But there is just a unity aspect of it that for me, I think really put that moment over the top. The Will helping out moment was a really great surprise in regards to it. The audience went crazy for that one. And then one of the shots that stay to me to this day, Stewart, that I think encompasses this series entirety, and I think also um, it goes back to what Kiki and Lucas says here. She says they say it's I think it's a cop out that no one died. I want to address this with my final OMG moment. Joyce Byers with the final strike.
Yeah.
That the act scene. I thought just from like a cinematic like story wrapping up ending to a final battle boss sort of thing. I thought that was the icing on the cake. I thought they did a remarkable job with that, Stewart. I'll tackle the Kiki and Luca moment by tying this in. But what did you think about that scene?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. That was just like the perfect like you know, like yeah, she like the first one to really suffer from the effects of Vecna after her son was of course Joyce, because she was, the one who for the longest time, besides the kids, she was the only one who knew no, there's something weird going on, guys. And of course, no one would listen to her. So she had that whole thing going on in the beginning of the show where everyone thought she was crazy. And then to finally kind of like see her being able to face the man that took her son, all those years ago, put him through like, the most immense trauma that no one should ever have to go through, and for her to have that final like moment of revenge, oh my gosh, that was so freaking amazing.
Yeah,
And the crazy eyes that she has, that I don't know, like Renona Ryder's eyes, man. She just has like kind of the perfect, like, I don't mean like crazy as in insane, but like crazy as in like, oh man, I don't know how to describe it. Just like the mad look in her eyes, like she was just ready for it to end. And yeah, I think it was perfect. It was brilliant to have her be the one to make the final strike, basically on Vecna.
yeah. At first I was thinking I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw it at home, and she pulls up to Vecna, and I'm just thinking to myself like, actually, I was just like, really, Joyce? Like this is Joyce. This is who gets the final strike. Like of all people, it's Joyce. But then once she hits that first act strike, and it gives us Holly's trauma, and then each fucking strike of the axe like is a reminder to us of like the pain and everything that each kid has gone through in some horrible way, being at the hands of Vecna and like getting their licks back for all the horrible shit that he's done. When Kiki and Lucas says, I think it's a cop out that no one died, this is the moment while I'm like, this is why nobody should have died. Because the reality of it is, all 4 seasons, all 5 seasons, these kids have been getting their asses and their lives just ripped into, dude. Like their whole life has been flipped upside down. People that they loved have been taken from them. Fucking Max has been in a coma. Lucas has been absolutely miserable. Like Eddie's died. Like everybody has been impacted in some way. And the fact that these kids walk away with a win, oh man, I think it. I walked into this thinking somebody was going to die, but the fact that nobody did die, I'm thinking I felt like this was the right move. And I think this scene alone solidifies why that was the right move, because they've been through so much shit already, Stuart,
Mhm.
in reality.
I gotta be honest, when it comes to character deaths, depending on the show, like if this was Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead, I might have a very different thought, but I really don't mind it if a character lives or dies at the end of their story. I just think that, depending on the situation, as long as they sacrifice something, and I think that that's something that every character in the show has done. Everyone has sacrificed a part of themselves for the greater good, whether it be, having just a normal life, all these characters, that's another great thing I got to point out about everyone in the show is that most of them had opportunities early on to where they could have easily just walked away from the whole thing, but they, that's not who they are. They chose to keep going. And yeah, I think that a sacrifice like that, when they put so much into it, I don't mind it when characters aren't killed off.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I know some people will say, "Oh, well, it takes away from the stakes of the show." I don't necessarily believe that. And I say that because I think we take our own emotions into a show when we go into it. Like if I had the expectations of like, "Oh man, I think somebody's gonna die in this episode," I think that immediately raises the stakes for me. So like as we're building up to that particular moment, the stakes, my emotions, especially like going into the moment of Steve dying, or Steve almost dying, even though he didn't die, I think the emotional stakes that I already have going into it heightens that moment for me. So there is a level of enjoyment that I already have kind of going into it. I mean, yeah, maybe some people are kind of disappointed or deflated after somebody's saved and the character lives or whatever the case may be. But I think stakes for a show and a moment come from the emotions that we kind of carry into it. And I think if those buildups are done properly, I think the payoff is going to be there regardless if a character wins or lives or dies. Because of what I feel. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm okay with the idea of them not doing it. Marcelino does say that, well, Callie died, so I guess that counts for something. He also says Joyce saying the F word to Vecna was the only time in the entire series where they said the F word. I didn't catch that.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. Save it
What's up,
for,
Kush?
save it for last, save it for the very end, because then it has, I think, I go with the South Park idea. Like the less you use it, the more of an impact that it has.
Yeah. Shout out to Kush also coming through, says feeling bad for Mike. Yeah, I feel bad for Mike too. I thought the Hopper and Mike scene was really
Yes.
well handled. I was, it was I did feel bad for Mike in the sense that like 18 months later, this man is still holding on to the grief, of losing somebody, and just seeing Hopper being able to relate, especially his story, I thought was brilliant. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I cried during this fucking this series finale like 3 or 4 times. I'm not gonna lie. This was one of the moments. This was a moment for me where I shed some tears just because of the relatability of Hopper and Mike, and just what their relationship has been. 3 feet apart, or keep the door cracked, like from where their relationship really started. I thought the Hopper speech to 11, and then 11 speech to Hopper really got me. So that's 3 times already. And then the final Mike storytelling scene at the D&D table. I mean, just fucking tears, guys. Fucking tears. It really hit.
Definitely. I think that the Hopper moment between Mike was absolutely perfect. And I think it was like what they both needed. Especially, because Hopper has been through this whole thing before. So he knows like the two paths that it can like lead to. So him like giving that speech to Mike, trying to make sure Mike doesn't make that same exact mistake that he did of like, dwelling in depression. It was great. There's a lot of things in life that we're all going to go through at some point or another. And so it does become hard because sometimes it's easier to just, take the route of just, not wanting to move on, and so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that, him telling him that at that exact moment was just exactly what Mike needed. And I love how it led to Mike eventually figuring out that, Elle is probably still out there. Of course, leading to the cool "I believe" speech, which again, I think for the reasons I brought up in the beginning of our podcast here, I do believe that Elle is still out there.
Yeah, I absolutely do believe. But yeah, guys, I think that's gonna maybe some other comments. I'm gonna see check the YouTube channel real quick and see if anybody did post anything over there. While we do it, like for you guys that didn't catch our Sunday show, me and Stewart did do a ranking of our top 5 Stranger Things um seasons. And for those of you who missed it, I guess we'll do it again. If you want the full breakdown, go to our Sunday show. There are timestamps, so you can find our section for the Stranger Things discussion. But if you want further breakdown in regards to our whys specifically, Go check it out on our YouTube page on our newest A plus Cure report. But Stuart, let's re-rank them for people that are joining us here. Again, this is our own personal opinions. If you feel differently, please let us know what your rankings are season-wise in the live chat or the comments after the show. But do you want to kick us off? How did you rank? Let's start from number 5 for you. What was your number 5 season?
My 5 was definitely season number 2.
Yeah, I think we both settled on number 2. I think on recent rewatch though, I enjoyed season 2 more than I originally gave it credit for. But yeah, I think we both had season 5, excuse me, season 2 at number 5. What was your number 4th favorite season?
I'm gonna go with season 5 as my number 4.
Yeah, I think we were both even on that one also. I think season 5 was my number 4 also. I didn't really have to I did have some issues with it, but they definitely stuck the landing for me. But the top 3 I think are just really special to me in general, which is why number 5 lands at season 5 lands at number 4. But what was your number 3, Stuart?
Oh man, I remember last time and even now it's still kind of hard to decide because number 3 and 4 I feel like could be interchangeable. I'm gonna go ahead and put number 4 on my number 3. But yeah, only because again, I feel like the long runtime for the episodes weren't exactly helped by the really boring Russian subplot the entire season. So that was what bugged me about it, especially because I usually love Hopper as a character. But making his season the most boring storyline was kind of a disappointment. But everything else about season 4, I absolutely loved. I want that to be clear, except for okay, I've talked about this too on the podcast. My other issue with season 4, and this also I feel like was very prevalent in season 5. I forgot to put this as a con. I feel like as much as I love, the fact they brought in the new character in season 4, Jonathan's friend, who was like also a stoner, and I absolutely loved that guy. I feel like them turning Jonathan into a stoner felt like an excuse to stop putting effort into his character, and so I feel like he just kind of stopped being like a character
Relevant.
in season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like he was just there, kind of like what I said about Lucas in the very beginning of the show. I feel like that same exact issue was with Jonathan. Like he's almost the same exact, like I know he had that moment of realizing and being able to finally admit to himself and to Nancy that they aren't compatible as they used to be. So I get that, but like apart from that, it feels like they did absolutely nothing with him like ever since season 4. So yeah, that will be my number 3 is season 4.
My number 3, and this is gonna upset some people, I know. I think it really shocked even Stuart when I first announced it. My number 3 is gonna be season 1, and
Yeah.
again, when I said before, the top 3 can be really interchangeable. So like these 3 are just really close to me. But season 1 is going to be my number 3. And as many times as I've rewatched season 1, it is a great first season of television for sure. But I do think there is something about character growth and stakes that are kind of being raised that I think for me makes some of the other seasons a little bit more enjoyable. But I'm not shitting on season 1 whatsoever. I think it really sets the tone for what the rest of this series is really going to be. It really takes some really great chances and some things that I had never really seen before when it comes to a streaming service. So for me, I will say season 1 is going to be my number 3. What about you, Stuart? What was your number 2?
So yeah, my number 2 will definitely be season 3. This was the season where they, because I think with season 2, it was like they tried so hard to recapture the feel of season 1. But 3, I feel like was when they kind of put that behind them and they were like, okay, the show's maturing, the characters are maturing, we're taking them to new territory. And I think that was the season they had. They just went balls to the wall with. I especially love the climax. See, I think that was like the other thing too. It's like I know the kaiju wasn't as big in season 3 as it was in season 5, but I think part of why I was disappointed that the only obstacle before getting to Vecna was the giant kaiju, because we already had seen them face a giant kaiju before in season 3. But that being said, I freaking love that flesh monster kaiju made of like
Oh yeah,
corpses. Like
yeah.
that was creepy and amazing. I also think that like kind of, you know, I know a lot of people get really annoyed with like forced like references, but I thought some of the references this season to like 80s pop culture was absolutely hilarious, especially with Back to the Future being a new movie. Um
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
loved it. I loved all
yeah.
of that. So honestly, I really, yeah. So season 3 is my number 2.
Yeah, my number two was season four. I was a really big fan of season four, the introduction of Vecna in that. I really love the idea of it had like Freddy Krueger vibes to me in regards to getting into your mind. You know, if you go to sleep, like you know, you can die in your sleep or in your mind sort of mentality. The addition to Eddie Munson I thought was absolutely brilliant in here, giving us a little bit more backstory in regards to Eleven along with Henry. I just thought like season four was like we really put our big boy pants on. Like we're really like taking you to a different era or a different time like we're just taking it to a different level for you guys. And season four, I think was just really menacing and just really creepy to me, man. I absolutely loved it. So season four for me is my number two. But what's your number one, Stuart? I think a lot of people will be more happy with your number one than my number one.
I mean, yeah, my number 1 is quite the obvious one. It's season 1. I think that season 1 is essentially kind of a perfect season of television.
Yeah, it's really great.
It's the only season of Stranger Things that I've actually rewatched multiple times.
Yeah, man, I've probably watched it like 4 or 5 times for sure. Um, and that's maybe including like one or two actual rewatches. Yeah, season one. I just remember season one. I anticipated like watching the show like with the lights off. I just remember getting a blanket, sitting in front of my TV, and getting hit with that Stranger Things logo for the first time, along with the music. It just gave me goosebumps, dude. Like it was just something really special about season one. But again, while I love season one, for me, my number one is probably season three. And it is like you referenced in the sense of the kids are growing up. It's the time period that they're in now, like the new types of clothing that they're wearing, the type of like just pop culture references that we get. I think did we get introduced to Max? We got introduced to Max in season two, I believe, right?
We did, yeah.
But she just has a great presence in here. We got relationship problems now that are happening between Mike and Elle, Max and Lucas, that I just found really compelling. The growth of Steve Harrington and his friendship, especially with Dustin. Like there's just so much that went into season three that I was a really big fan of. The big death of Billy and stuff, learning about Billy's past a little bit. I don't know. Season three for me just hit completely differently than the first two seasons when I watched it, especially in regards to its rewatch. And yeah, man, it just them taking a new step in regards to giving us something a little bit different that they had it in the first two seasons really worked for me. So again, I think character growth, the stakes being raised each season, really solidifies maybe three and four for me higher up on my list than I would the first season. But no doubt, season one is absolutely incredible. But
Yeah.
that would be our ranking list, guys, for sure. And yeah, man, I think that's gonna be it. I wanted to grade the final episode here, Stuart, but I think I might pass on that.
Okay.
Did you have a grade for it that you want to give? It's gonna be an A+ for me. I'm just gonna let you know right now. But I'm kind of curious what you would
Um,
have given it.
what would I give it? I think I'd give it like a solid. I say solid. I think I'd give it a B-.
Oh, you know what? I'm glad I added B-. I was like, I don't know how low Stewart's gonna get. I even put a C+ in here just to be on the safe side. But so a B- for you. Yeah, I'm gonna give it an A+. I really didn't have very many qualms with it. I watched it twice and I was just on the ride. And that's not a series grade. That's not a series or a season 5 grade. I'm just talking about the series finale in general. It was just
Yeah.
personally everything that I really wanted it to be in regards to closure for some of the characters, sticking the landing as beautifully as they certainly did, and really giving me a lot of oh shit moments that really deserve to be seen on the big screen, if you ask me. Um, Kiki and Luca's going to give it a B plus. Nice, nice grade. We got Earl. What's up, Earl? And KXM. All have you heard of Conformity Gate? That's definitely going to be that episode 9 that I think people are certainly talking about for sure. Again, I think we referenced it. I personally don't think there's going to be episode 9. I would like to gladly be surprised. I wouldn't even know what episode 9 would be after this.
Yeah, just like an even longer epilogue.
Yeah, like oh, there's one more thing we forgot that we should have put. Like I just don't even know what it would be. But so while I don't think there's going to be an episode 9 Conformity Gate, that's just our speculation. But if you do want more Stranger Things, there is a behind the scenes special set to hit Netflix called One Last Adventure. They did drop a trailer for it today. I think it's like a documentary of the filming of the final season. That does drop on Netflix January 12th. So certainly look forward to that. But yeah, I'm sure
There
I
will
don't you know.
also be a spin-off show coming with the
Yes.
like an animated one. I think they said it takes place between 2 and 3.
Yes, so we've got Stranger Things Tales from '85, which is an animated series that's going to be taking place between seasons 2 and 3. And the Duffer Brothers have confirmed also another Stranger Things spin-off series that's going to be live action. They're pretty secretive of it, but they are saying new characters, new location. It doesn't really have any connection to the Upside Down or anything like that, but that it may focus on the stone that Henry found in his flashback. Oh, there was one thing. Somebody did ask what we thought about the flashback for. Yeah, how did you guys think? What did you guys think of the Vecna flashback scene? I was actually a really big fan of it. I really liked the connection that Will had with Henry in that moment. Um, because and I also love how Will said, like, you're just like me, dude. Like all the shit that you put me through, like my man is like they literally did to you, Henry, right? In the sense of you just being a vessel for somebody else to kind of get whatever it is that this creature certainly wants to. I think there was a really cool kind of level of relatability. I'm glad that there wasn't a redemption arc for
Yeah.
Henry. I'm pleased at the fact that he, like you said, Stuart, he chose this path for himself. But I did feel bad for Henry. Like there was a sense of because of the fact that he was innocent, and this changed this kid's life for the rest of his life, regardless of him embracing it for himself. It's just a tragic ending for Vecna, but the fact that he didn't get redeemed, I was pleased with.
Yeah, same here. Like, I love a villain that, like, you kind of feel bad for, but like, doesn't necessarily mean they're redeemable. And I think going that direction with someone like Vecna, especially after like all the shit that he's done to them, and yeah, I don't think I think if they had redeemed him at the very end, that would have been very disappointed. It would have brought me back to a lot of reasons I didn't like season 6 of. No, sorry, season 7 of The Flash.
Shout out to Eddie. I don't know if I gave Eddie a shout out. He gave it a D. He wasn't a
Oh,
big
okay.
fan of. He gave it a big ass D. He didn't care about this season too much, but that's okay. As Kiki says, entertainment is certainly subjective for sure.
It is, and yeah, I do like that we seem to have very differing opinions on this. I'm glad to like have your perspective where then again, you also got to see it in the big screen, so it is possible that I would have been as positive if I had that experience.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I was already pleased with it after I saw it at home, but the idea of being able to see it on the big screen was like nothing that I had ever really like. I don't want to say nothing like I've ever seen before, but it really took Stranger Things to like a whole nother level. And I think the community of fans, their levels of anticipation and like their participation, I should say, with their emotions and stuff was just it took it up a notch for sure. So even though I haven't watched this since January 1st, Stuart, each day I still find myself thinking about this show and these characters, and it's a rarity that a show leaves and I'm kind of sad that I'm really not going to be able to revisit it again. And that, I think, like, I had that feeling when I watched Lost, and it wrapped up, and I find myself having that feeling again when it comes to Stranger Things. Like, I'm really gonna miss these shows, these characters, these stories, and how they certainly made me feel. So I think it's been a brilliant show. I mean, granted, yes, there have been some issues with it, but I think the good and the great of this show in general have certainly outweighed, I think, any of the faults that have certainly come with it.
I would definitely agree. And honestly, like I would even say like some of the faults of the show, all it does is really just kind of like help the show kind of build more character and like kind of change over time. I think it was cool to see, when they tried, and I don't want to say completely failed, but when they tried one thing with season two, they realized, wasn't connecting with the fans the same way. And so they just, decided to go a completely different direction. And once they found that, they kept going. Because again, this was all meant to be just one season. So continuing after that, I can only imagine how much of a challenge that must have been for them. But I think the way the show kind of had its like bumpy roads. I think it just kind of makes me appreciate even more that they were able to stick the landing.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think they stuck the landing for sure. But look, guys, those are our thoughts in regards to the series finale for Stranger Things 5. What did you guys think about it? We definitely want to know your thoughts in the comments after this particular video wraps. But thank you for everybody that joined us in the live chat, shared some of your thoughts, your points of view on it. It's always great being able to bounce discussion points off of you guys and hearing everybody's certain opinions. Because at the end of the day, these are simply our A+ opinions, but we always want to certainly know yours. But Stranger Things has wrapped, Stewart, and so shall we. So, guys, until next time, we will be back later on this weekend with a live episode of A+ Hero Report on Sunday. It'll just be myself, moi. Maybe I'll find another co-host for the next couple of weeks here while Stewart takes a little bit of a break. But we certainly will be back on Sunday. So, until next time, do us a big favor, as always, guys. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.